Oh boy, I sure do love coming home with my brand new copy of Splatoon 3 on September 9th, 2021. But this gives me an idea. What if a really topical and extremely relevant video about Splatoon 1? Splatoon is a sort of oddball series within Nintendo. Starting as a new IP that nobody believed in, the game was the 6th best-selling game on the Wii U, and the franchise got its third installment very recently. It has tournament still going to this day. It was one of the franchises showed in the reveal trailer for the Nintendo Switch. It got a number of collaborations, including a fighter in Super Smash Bros. And Splatoon 2 sold almost 3 times as much as the original game, with a total of 13.3 million copies sold as of March 2022. What started as a simple shooter is now one of Nintendo's big franchises. I was into the series ever since the first game came out for the Wii U. Splatoon 2 was the 4th game I got for my Switch, and I got Splatoon 3 on launch day, so I would consider myself a Splatoon fan. With Splatoon 3 releasing 2 months ago, I was interested in looking back at the 2 fully completed games already out, plus the auto expansion, a full campaign that released as paid DLC for Splatoon 2. With the preamble out of the way, it's time to dive right in.
I'm the first to admit a shit thoughts provoke the new era. Come up with terror, but my only rival is my shadow. We run the play back if it's my own era. Get low to the ground, it's getting better like I told you before. Double up a dead road cheddar. L to the J6, stay laced. Here's my car, me with a flush, and I'm the ace.
Before we get into the game properly, a quick history lesson. Originally made in a bundle of over 70 different game ideas by directors Yusuke Amano and Tsubasa and producer Hisashi Nogami, the team chose to make a game focused on inking turf with white and black tofu blocks with a top-down view so the blocks could blend in with the ink. However, they didn't really like that idea, so they switched to rabbits with a classic third-person camera, but that concept was also criticized. The team then debated on having Mario, robots, or even Buffman as the playable characters, but they finally settled on humanoid kids that could transform into squids, the Inklings. Splatoon was originally revealed at the 2014 E3 digital event and released 7 years ago on May 29, 2015, to favorable critical and player scores. With all that said, we can now start the game. Splatoon at its core is a third-person shooter, where you can shoot ink and turn into a squid. Shooting ink allows you to cover terrain with ink and eliminate opponents. In squid form, you can swim in the ink, which can be used to climb walls, hide in it, go faster, recharge your ink, and recover your health quicker. You can aim with the gyroscope of the Wii U gamepad, turn off gyro aim and use the second joystick on the gamepad or on the Pro controller, or even a Wii Classic controller attached to a Wii remote. Yes, this is real. Nintendo wanted you to play like this. There are multiple game modes you can play, either offline or online, in teams of 4 against 4. In the lobby, you have access to the online multiplayer modes, but there's no traditional deathmatch mode, which is very appreciated and really helps this game stand out as a shooter. The main mode is Turf War, in which each team tries to ink the most turf in 3 minutes. The team with the most ground covered by the color at the end wins. It's very simple, but in my opinion, it never really got repetitive for the 7 years this mod has existed, and it's pretty much stayed the same since 2015. The variety comes from the different maps and weapons, both of which I'll go into more depth later, but also the numerous players you'll come across in your games. With every game, you will get coins and XP, and of course you get more XP when you win. XP allows you to gain levels, aka your freshness, which allows you to buy new clothes and weapons with cash. At level 10, you unlock the ranked battles, all of which were patched in after the game released, and work on a 5-minute timer instead of a 3-minute timer. Splatoon, released on June 1st, 2015, is the King of the Hill mode. You must inch predetermined zones until the timer counts down to 0. If the enemy team covers the zone back from you, you get a penalty added to your timer. This also works the other way around. The team who either gets to 0 or has the lowest score wins by the end. I'm not really a fan of this one, because it's very static as you stay in one place of the map during the entire round. Tower Control, released on July 2nd, 2015, where the tower starts at the center of the map and the two teams must stand on it in order to get the tower to the enemy base, with a counter going down the further you go. The more players on the tower simultaneously, the faster it goes. If no one goes on the tower for a certain time, the tower starts going back to the center. The team with the lowest score, or who reaches the enemy base with the tower, wins. Rainmaker, released on August 15, 2015, is a modified Capture the Flag, where you must carry the titular Rainmaker to the enemy base. The Rainmaker is protected by a shield you must ink to break, which then sprays ink at the team who broke the shield in an area of effect. The player who picks up the Rainmaker now wields it as a weapon, which you can charge to shoot a tornado with a knockback effect. When wielding the Rainmaker, you won't be able to super jump to another player, your movement speed is reduced by 20%, and you can't enter spawn. After picking it up, the timer pops up over your head, and you have 60 seconds before it kills you, and the timer goes 3 times faster if you retreat, and you have an icon pointing to you at all times, even through walls. If the player carrying the Rainmaker dies, it respawns back with its shield and you have to break it again. The further you get with the Rainmaker, the lower the counter gets. The team who has the lowest score or who reaches the enemy base with the Rainmaker wins. The rounds in this mode can either last less than 30 seconds or 6 minutes. It's really a coin toss. In any of these modes, if the team with the highest score, aka the losing team, has control of the split zones /tower/Rainmaker, at the end of the 5 minutes timer, overtime will begin. Overtime will continue until the losing team loses control of the objectives or surpasses the winning team, upon which the match will end. Unfortunately, and that's not the game's fault, at least not entirely, is that the netcode is awful. I have no idea if it's because the servers are on live support or if the players I encountered were all playing in a McDonald's, but sometimes I would shoot an enemy with a fatal blow, but they would still be alive for a full second, giving them time to kill me before dying themselves. I don't remember it being this bad when I played Splatoon a few years back, but it may be my memory playing Twitch on me, or I simply didn't notice back then. The game features many weapons in order to combat your enemies, separated in 7 different categories. They are mostly equivalent to weapons in other more traditional shooters, but there are some unique categories that couldn't be possible in other games. Shooters. The basic weapons, like the assault rifles from other shooters, they can either shoot automatically or semi-automatically. Chargers. They are sniper rifles. They are a one-shot kill almost every time, but they need to be charged before shooting. Splatlings. They are miniguns that you have to charge before shooting. Splatters. This is where we start to get more into the more unique categories, as the splatters are a bit similar to grenade launchers, as they launch projectiles that have splash damage, but they travel in a straight line and aren't affected by gravity. Sloshers. They are bucket-like weapons that hurl single shots of ink in an overhead arc, so you can reach enemies beyond cover. Rollers. They are a melee weapon that you push around, leaving a trail of ink behind. If you roll someone over with any roller, it's an instant kill, but you can also bring down your roller to do more damage. Brushes. A smaller, quicker version of the rollers. Instead of rolling someone over to kill them, you swing at them wildly, which makes it better for close quarter combat. They all have 3 stat bars, which are essentially damage, rate of fire, and how fast you move while using the weapon. Out of all of them, I used the shooters and the carbon roller the most, because I'm pretty bad with every other category, especially the chargers. Though I'm not sure since the last time I played Splatoon 1 was in 2017-2018 until I started taking note for this video. Every main weapon is paired with a different sub-weapon and a special weapon. The 10 different sub-weapons are secondary items you can use by pressing R, and they cost a lot of your ink. The red light shows up on your intake to show when you're able to use it. Splat bombs are your typical grenades. Such grenades have a bigger blast radius, but cost more ink and don't fall. Burst bombs explode on contact, but cost less. The seeker chases its target before exploding while leaving a trail of ink behind. The ink mine is pretty self-explanatory. The point sensor is a front device that creates an area of effect on impact that tiles opponent for about 8 seconds. The disruptor makes enemies slower and reduces ink recovery rate. The splash wall is a wall of ink that blocks enemy ink and movement. The sprinkler sprinkles ink for a short period of time. And finally, the sweet beacon allows you and your teammate to super jump to it until it's destroyed. When I was younger, I was a burst bomb fan, but as I grew up, I became a certified suction bomb enjoyer. Finally, rounding up your arsenal are the 7 special weapons, powerful weapons that you can activate for a short time by pressing the right joystick after filling up your special gauge, which requires to ink turf. The bomb rush allows you to spam your sub-weapon. The bubbler gives you a shield that makes you invincible that can be passed to your teammates through physical contact. The echolocator reveals the locations of all enemies for teammates to see on the field and the map. The ink strike is a
Tactical nuke incoming!
The ink Zuka shoots tall tornadoes of ink with a recoil effect in rapid succession. The killer whale is a large instant kill beam through walls after a short charge time. The Kraken turns its user into an invincible Kraken, able to travel quickly through enemy ink and splat opponents with its melee attack. All of the weapons were pretty busted, each for different reasons. They were designed as table turning weapons, but they overdid it in my opinion. My favorites are the Ink Strike and Ink Zuka, because I like big explosions, and those weapons are the closest things to an airstrike and an RPG. And of course, it would be impossible to play matches without stages. And Splatoon actually does something interesting by having every stage be completely symmetrical in order to not give either team an advantage. It's not the first game to do this, but it gives the game an edge in the time it was released, because I don't think a lot of shooters from the 2010s did this, even more so popular ones. There were 5 stages at launch, those being Urchin Underpass, Walleye Warehouse, Salt Spraying, Aurwana Mall, and Blackbelly Skate Park. 11 maps were also added post-launch from June 2nd, 2015 until January 22nd, 2016. Port Mackerel, Cape Dome, Bluefin Depot, Moway Towers, Camp Triggerfish, Flounder Heights, Hammerhead Bridge, Museum d'Alfonsino, Maimahi Resort, Piranha Pit, and Anchovy Games. Moray Towers was iconic enough to get into Smash Bros, while Urchin Underpass got into Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Out of the entire Splatoon 1 stage list, it's hard for me to pick a favorite. They're all equally pretty good, and I don't think there's really a way for me to settle on one, but I like Piranha Pit a lot. I did say earlier that you could buy stuff in shops, which is true, even if you need to be level 4 to buy stuff that aren't weapons, which kinda sucks because it takes a bit of running in order to visit close shop, even if the weapon shop only requires you to be level 2. You have 3 different shops for gear, shoes, clothing, and headgear. Some of it is only able with certain amiibos. They all have different abilities that have minor effects on the online matches, such as better defense, swimming faster in ink, or using less ink when using a weapon. There are simply too many to list. I also love that every single piece of gear is made by a functional brand. It really adds a lot to the world building. Speaking of shops, I really like that there are physical shops that you can visit by walking to them in the main hub, the Inkopolis Plaza. The plaza is where you can also access the lobby in order to play online games or play the other offline modes. First, easy the worst of the bunch, is the Battle Dojo, a local multiplayer area in which you can only play a balloon bursting mode with only 5 stages available, 8 possible weapons, and their associated outfits. It's straight up bad. You can play any of the actual modes that you would want to play, like Turf War or Rainmaker. It was announced on April 1st, 2015, even the developers knew it sucked. You used to be able to see Miiverse posts created by users you played with and or against, but with Miiverse shutting down in November 2017, that's not something you can see nowadays, which transforms the once lively plaza into an eerie purgatory. In the plaza, you can also use your Splatoon amiibos to access new challenges, which in turn will get you new gear and unique reskins of certain weapons. The Squid Sisters amiibo allows you to see a concert where they are performing one of their 7 songs alongside their respective dance routine. Oh yeah, the Squid Sisters, that's the first time I've mentioned them. They're an in-universe pop idol group composed of Kali and Maui. They announce the stages and mods that rotate every 2 hours. You can also see them in the new stations in the plaza, and they host the Splatfest. Splatfests are events where you have to choose between one of 2 teams. For example, if you prefer cats or dogs, then you fight for your side and try to make your team win. You had to wear the t-shirt representing your team, and the plaza and stages were in a constant night sky with a party ambience, neon lights, fireworks, and the Sweet Sisters doing a concert for the entire 24 hours duration. At the end, the points are tallied between how many people joined the side and how many battles they won. Splatfest's theme were dependent on whether you lived in America, Europe/Oceania, or Japan, with the only common themes being Pokemon Red or Blue/Green, SpongeBob or Patrick, but only in the West, and Kali or Maui. The Squid Sisters also participated in actual concerts IRL in the same manner as Hatsune Miku. Unfortunately, I happened to miss all of them. The last offline mode you can access is the story mode, the Octo Valley. Whenever you start the game for the first time, you get a news broadcast saying that the Great Zapfish, the electricity source for the city, disappeared. You are then guided to the manhole in the plaza, which is where you go to access the mod, which gets you face to face with Captain Cuttlefish, a war veteran, and you're appointed as Agent 3 of the new Squid Beach Splatoon, and are tasked with defeating the Octarians and retrieving the Great Zapfish. It's a pretty classic setup, and the story doesn't get any deeper. It's your usual beat the bad guys and save the city plot that kids media usually have, which makes sense since it's a Nintendo game. In order to achieve your goal, you have to go through linear stages with a boss at the end of each area. For what makes it different structure-wise is that you first have to find the stage whose entrance are cutters which are invisible until you inch them enough. There are 6 cutters besides the boss in every area, except for the first one, which only features 3 cutters. Unfortunately, this doesn't do much since you still have to beat every stage in order to unlock the boss of the zone, which then allows you to move on to the next area after you beat it. Cutters are usually pretty easy to find too, and there's no extra objectives you can do outside of the stages, so at this point I would have preferred a linear world map. The stages themselves are pretty simple, run and gun with a decent amount of platforming challenges. Think Mega Man X but in 3D and actually good. In the stages you can find power heads, which are like coins in a Mario game. They are littered throughout the levels, and you get some by killing enemies. They are used to upgrade your equipment, like how fast you shoot, how much ink you have in your tank, or the radius of the splat bombs. You can also buy the ability to use burst bombs or seekers, which you can switch to with the D-pad. To help you in the stages, you're also able to find armor suitcases, which serve as a secondary health bar until they run out, as well as special weapon cans, which allows you to use the special weapon in the can once. In the different levels, you can find unique gimmicks such as sponges you can ink to make bigger, propeller platforms, and ink rails. Of course, your progress will be impeded by enemies, here being the Octarians. They come in different varieties, ranging from your basic Octo Troopers, Octo Snipers, or even Octolings, which behave like a player character but controlled by an AI instead of a sweaty 30-year-old man. The Octolings also have the best track in the single player OST. At the end of every level, you rescue a lost Zapfish, smaller variant of the great Zapfish. They actually get replaced by a Zapfish doll when you replay a level, which is very cute I think. After beating a boss, you get a sunken scroll with a weapon blueprint in them that you can show to Sheldon, the local weapons dealer, which will make a new weapon out of it. Hidden in every level are more sunken scrolls, which provides additional lore and world building. I won't get into too much detail, but in brief, 12,000 years ago, mammals roamed the earth before suddenly going extinct. Then 2,000 years ago, water levels rose, sea creatures came out of the water, and gained human-level intelligence. Over 100 years ago, Inkopolis was created, and years later, cuttlefish and the litter of the Octarians were born. Sometime later, sea levels rose once again, forcing Inklings and Octarians to go to war for the remaining land, which is how turf wars were invented. At first, the Octarians had the upper hand, thanks to their more advanced weaponry, but then a plug got unplugged, so the technology didn't work anymore, allowing the Inklings to take the advantage and win the war, forcing the Octarians to take refuge in the Octo Valley. After the war, turf war shifted from military conflict to a competitive sport, which does mean that the main mode of the series is a remnant of a race war that probably killed thousands of people. Anyway, fast forward to around a decade before the first game, after the birth of Kelly and Mary, they got into an annual youth singing contest and won, launching their idol career into what it is now. Back to the present, you get a codec interlude after beating each boss. They don't really get interesting until you beat the first boss, when Cuttlefish gets captured by the leader of the Octarians. Then, after defeating the fourth boss, Kelly and Mary enter the scene disguised as Agent 1 and Agent 2 respectively. Side note, when I was a kid, I thought Mary had a giant cartoonish smile, when in reality she was just wearing a mask. Moving on, they both provide commentary in the levels instead of Cuttlefish. After beating every level and defeating the previous bosses, you get access to the final kettle, leading you to the final boss, the big boss of the Octarians, DJ Ottavio. He is not that much different from the other bosses, though I do remember him kicking my ass when I was 9 years old. Though, unlike the other bosses, he has 5 phases instead of 3, and his music is even more of a certified banger than the rest of them. The most remarkable part is the Calamari incantation placed during the final phase after Cuttlefish sets himself free, which is probably the best song in the game. After kicking his ass, the great Zapfish is rescued. The Squid sisters are reunited with their grandpa. The Octarians go back underground, condemning an entire species to slowly drown to death, and then everyone lives happily ever after. You watch the credits while listening to Maritime Memory. And then you're back at the plaza. Finishing the story mode rewards you with replicas of the hero suit and the hero shot, as well as replicas of the Octoling gear. The last thing to talk about is the presentation, aka the graphics and music. Now, of course, graphics aren't the most important part of a game, but good graphics still matter a lot, just as much as good gameplay does. And graphics-wise, this game aged pretty well, even if the Wii U has worse specs than the PS3. Splatoon still looks pretty good 7 years later. The game looks very colorful, which is exactly what you need for a game about splatting colored ink everywhere. My only minor complaint is that some of the buildings can look pretty drab and greyish, realistic I suppose, but I wish it wasn't. In the end, this game is one of my examples as to why good art style will always age better than trying to achieve realism at all costs. The UX also adds a lot of charm to the game while being extremely useful at the same time. At any point during a match, you have access to all the information you need, such as who has the advantage, or how much terrain you ink without it taking too much space or being distracting, which is a trap a lot of multiplayer games can fall into. Some of this is also reflected on the ink leads, as for example, their hair starts glowing whenever their special weapon is ready. And now for the most important part, the music. All of the songs are in different genres, like rock or rap, and are performed by in-game bands. Like the Sweet Sisters, obviously, but also the Squid Squad, which provides all of the online battle tracks available at launch, Chirpy Chips in High-Tide era, which adds 2 new songs each for the online matches, or Turquoise October, which made songs for the single-player content. They all provide very different feeling music and add a lot of charm to the game. They really feel like music that anthropomorphic sea creatures focused on vibes and style would make. They even have their own lyrics, which are only vocal sounds and don't mean anything. I know it's become a meme that Splatoon fans love listening to someone gather in peace, and trust me, I love joking about that as well. But I don't know what to say, man. I genuinely love the soundtrack. It's the main reason I want Nintendo to add their OST to music streaming services, because I listen to the songs non-stop. My favorite song from the Splatoon 1 soundtrack being Ink or Sync. And that's all I've got to say really. Splatoon is reminiscent of when Nintendo actually gave a shit and tried to do stuff outside their safe zone that they weren't sure was going to sell. This was an outliner even in the era it came out, as in 2015, Nintendo also made the Triforce of the Dark Age, aka Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, and Chibi Robo Ziplash. Splatoon is a game straight out of the GameCube, but with online multiplayer. Nintendo tried to recapture the same magic as Splatoon with ARMS, but that was a huge flop. They also copied the structure of releasing a game and then adding new content with free updates later, but that ended up with Nintendo releasing half-baked games and then finishing them after they came out. I'm surprised that even after the series sold millions of copies and was received extremely well, they only made 3 games and 1 paid DLC in 7 years, considering it's now one of Nintendo's bigger IPs. I mean, I would happily take a Splatoon kart, or a Splatoon fighter, or even a Splatoon dancing, or just more advanced single-player experiences, considering the fascinating world and huge lore they created. But on the other hand, I'm somewhat glad Splatoon isn't part of the half-baked games I mentioned earlier, and it's not completely milk. With that said, I've run out of things to talk about, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, comment, subscribe, all that, it really helps me. Thanks for watching and have a great day.